Kings, queens, and in-betweens, welcome back to another episode of the City Boys podcast. My name is Jacob, and always I am joined by two of my best friends, where each week we break down the match that St. Louis City had. And unfortunately for you guys, we have a pretty abysmal one to break down. But before we get into it, Grayson, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing good. We just finished our extra time episode. So thanks to all the people that tuned in for that. It just started a storm here. We took a little
Yeah.
break and the thunder is kind of scary. It's kind of spooky, but
Ooh.
I like it. I like that. So I'm into it. I'm ready to talk about some St. Louis City soccer. Maybe not the uh best time for it, but we're gonna do it regardless. So here we are. Ethan, how you feel, buddy?
Well, we're here. We're ready to do it. I'm not excited to talk about a 3-0 thrashing after our 10th straight game without a win, but we're going to do it because we do love the club.
It needs to be done. It needs to be done. So,
Jacob, wait. How are you doing, Jacob?
I appreciate that, Ethan. I'm doing good, fellas. The result sucks, but life is going pretty great, so I can't complain too much. I think, as uh, Ethan would say, it is another day in paradise. So yeah, pretty excited to talk with you guys about the game. Not necessarily excited about the result, but I do really care for your guys' opinions on soccer in general. So this one's gonna be a good one for us to really get into the weeds of.
and yeah, like Jacob and I mentioned during our extra time episode, Jacob and I were eating crawfish at the point during the match, so we were watching on my phone. It was weird because it kind of felt like the match was just not even happening.
Yeah,
It was more of a complacent feeling about the
It's a weird
match.
vibe.
Just yeah, I was watching it and I felt defeated before the game even started. It was painful, but I still tuned in and watched the game, and the result matched my feeling, sadly. So
Yeah, I watched the game all 90 minutes. It was tough. It was just a tough watch from start to finish. We looked all right in the first half, and I thought, that there were some positives to be taken away from those 45 minutes, but I was shocked at the lineup. I was shocked at some of the subs. It was just
some of the not subs.
yeah.
a lot of it. Yeah.
The game honestly really matched my vibe going into it. I wasn't expecting much and then didn't get much.
Yeah. I think something that is very topical at the moment for this match is the lineup. So, Ethan, why don't you go ahead and take us through this lineup and we'll chat about it a little bit.
Well, gentlemen, we lined up in a 3-4-2-1. Thankfully, once again, Roman Berkey is starting in net. It seems like he's healthy, and I hope it stays that way forever. From left to right, across the back, Kyle Hebert, Joshua Yarrow in the center, and Timo Baumgartel on the right side. From left to right, across the midfield, we had Celio Pompeu, Jake Goodwood Reich getting, I believe, his first start of the season. Was extremely surprised to see him in the lineup. Next to Thomas Ostrak and Akil Watts. The two in front of them being Marcel Hartel and Conrad Vollum, who did okay. And the one up top was Cedric Toyshirt. We would see Simon Betcher enter the game for Thomas Ostrak. Chris Durkin would make his return to the side for Celio Pompeu. Rasmus Alm would come into the game for Akil Watts, and João Klaus and Jean de Silva both come into the game. Gentlemen, what did you think of the starting 11, and what did you make of all three of our defenders going 90 minutes?
What did I make of the starting 11? Well, hello, JGR. I know you subbed on earlier this week in the Sporting Kansas City match, but you played 90 minutes in a game for the first time in a couple years, and it definitely looked like that for sure. Positive takeaways. It was nice to see Allen back on the field. Nice to see Durkin back on the field. We don't necessarily have center back depth to be subbing center backs, but in a game that feels like we're looking forward to playing them more on Wednesday than we are on Saturday, I would have expected our center backs to be rotated a little bit, but they all went 90 minutes, which is, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully they got firsthand lesson on how to defend Minnesota. But yeah, all things considered, I'm not super pleased right now with the club.
Yeah, for me, I'm very surprised that we don't see some of these players we haven't seen, like Michael Wenzel in this game. Why doesn't he get a late introduction? It doesn't have to be meaningful, but 2 minutes like he gave Klaus at the end of the game,
Yeah, I mean,
you
he's not
know?
even on the bench either. You got to think that probably they are not super high on Michael Wenzel at this point. If he hasn't featured on the bench, really, we had Henry Kessler on the bench ready to be subbed on. And this back line has conceded plenty of goals in the past few games. I can't imagine why else he would not be featuring.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think we all kind of expected to see a little bit of a rotated side, kind of prioritizing the midweek US Open Cup match. But the way that my dad put it is when you put out a lineup like this, it doesn't seem like the game plan is to try and win at all.
Mm.
I listened to the post match presser with Olaf, and he said that the game plan for this match was to not concede and stay organized defensively. And if honestly, if that's your game plan with this team, we're not gonna win this game ever. If our goal is not to concede, that should always be the goal. But sadly, that game plan is not gonna get us any points against a team like Minnesota. It's just not happening. So, I wanted some rotation. I did not expect to see João Klaus on the bench. I thought he would maybe get like a 45 or something, but you
More
know.
than 2 minutes for sure.
This was I wanted to see Xande Silva. Why is he not starting this game? Of course, I
Yeah.
I think Xande should be starting this match with Celio. But it's I think just more miscommunication between what you know why the signing was even brought in the first place.
Another noteworthy piece of this lineup was that Cameron Silly was called up as an unused substitute. And I think that we could potentially see him in the Open Cup on Wednesday. Otherwise, I'm not 100% sure why he would be called up to the squad just to watch from the bench.
Just to hang out,
I
just
also
to
think I saw from
be
Kai Joyner's
honest.
Instagram story that he was in the stadium for the game, not on the bench, like up in a box somewhere. But I have a feeling he's first team bound. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Joyner's impressed with the time he's gotten. He's looked confident. He's looked like he fits in well. He looks like a youngster, but he's got the confidence to play a good role, I think, in this St. Louis City side, even if it is at wingback. I think he does the job decently well, enough to where he will get some minutes here and there. And honestly, if we do end up having to sign him to the first team to get him those minutes, that would not be a problem for me. We might as well at this point. Uh, should we get into the match review and start talking about some of these goals?
Yeah, we're not going to do a full game breakdown. Conveniently, there are three goals to talk about, and there are three people talking. So we're each going to take a goal. And I'm lucky to have the first goal because in the preview, I said one to watch, Olowache. And what do you know? Olowache was definitely one to watch in this match. The first goal we concede comes from a Minnesota corner kick, which is actually off the back of a pretty great save from Roman Berkey to give them this corner kick. Uh, the corner comes in and Romero heads it down towards net, and Oluwase's just kind of in the way, so he knocks the header down. and then he's got a whole feels like 2 seconds of time to think with his back turned to goal, and he just rips a back heel into the back of the net, knocks off Berkey, and goes in. I don't really know what to say here. Is sort of like what could have gone better, I guess. Challenge the header to begin with. Don't let him take the ball down. Get something between the ball and the goal. Like,
Yeah, our
Dude, I'll say
set piece defending is rough this year.
that's what I was gonna say, Grayson. I've been complaining about our set piece defending since what feels like last season, and I am not ready to sit here and harp about it for a whole nother season, boys. We have got to sort that
Yeah.
out. It has to be cleared on the first time, and I think that is just what it all comes down to is showing desire on chances like that.
I'd have to say St. Louis has had historically a couple players that are the favorites to win headers, and that was Tim Parker, who's just towering and aggression will get to that ball, and then Kessler, his direct replacement, has that same drive to get to those balls in the air. There's those games where he had like I think 20 headed clearances or something like that. Fantastic player, but he can't be on the field at all times. And we have three center backs who need to be able to put in just as much effort to get on that ball as, Kess would. So I'm just not happy with the desire to win the ball in the air. I will say that's something that JGR did well in this game. He won, I think, 6 or 7 headed 50-50 aerial duels. So, that's something we haven't seen from a St. Louis City player this year is win a lot of aerial duels, but that's probably, I think, about the only thing he did do this game. So I
he
will
did a
give him
lot of
that.
jogging. He
I'll
did
give
a
him that.
lot of jogging.
Oh yeah, second goal, I forget, is from JGR. It's a slow pass that JGR spreads out wide. It gets picked off. Robin Lod gets sent driving down the heart of the St. Louis City defense, pins him back. Good little 1-2 with Longwane. Lays it off to Olowache. One time passes it off to Pereira, who picks out the bottom left corner. Past a stranded Roman Berkey. I complained about it last week when we said some of these goals they're just better. This is just better quality. Uh, I think this might be one of those goals. They just cut up our midfield, and it starts with just lackluster quality in the midfield from us for just an easy giveaway that there was not uh, any strength or reasoning behind the pass. It just wasn't confident. Not good.
Yep, just lackluster defending, no real sprint to get back that I saw, and real quality demonstrated by Minnesota.
I mean, when you give the ball up and then you're caught jogging,
It's
you
gonna
should
go.
you should be coming off the field.
Yeah, it's not a great look. And the third goal that Minnesota gets is honestly just as bad of a look. Minnesota does good buildup on their left side, but the main story for me on this goal is Julian Gressel being open from 40 yards away from the goal all the way into the 6 yard box when he taps it in. No, Jane Silva telling Kyle Hebert that he has a man on. Kyle Hebert with his back completely facing him. No idea. You would have thought that Kyle Hebert had eyes in the back of his head based on his positioning. So, of course, he has no idea. Roman Berkey gets a hand to it. It is just not even close. It's the nail in the coffin. And an extremely frustrating goal for St. Louis City fans who were clamoring for Julian Gressel to be signed in this past offseason. It would have cost us essentially nothing, I think. And we watch him score on us on a team higher up in the table. Not to mention, Julian Gressel had not even a drop of sweat on him. I think he had
He had
essentially
just
just
subbed
come into
on.
the game
Yeah.
at this point. So, talk about an instant impact sub. Yeah, just I mean, frankly, an embarrassing goal for St. Louis City to concede. One of the worst that we have conceded this season, in my opinion. Just as far as like morale is concerned, it was brutal.
Yeah, I
My
think a point on that is it's something I've noticed many times this season is the lack of scanning the pitch. Just looking over your shoulder and seeing what's around you is just I feel like it never happens. St. Louis City over and over has been caught ball watching, not even aware of defenders. We harped on Akil Watts last week for not knowing that a defender's ghosting behind him. Uh, Most of our problems could be solved with just a little bit of spatial awareness. So I need to see players looking over their shoulders constantly, figuring out where these players are around them.
I have a little bit of defensive advice for any defenders who currently play soccer and might have seen that goal. The third goal that St. Louis City SC conceded, something very easy for Kyle Hebert to do is simply open up his hips one way or the other. The fact that his back is to any part of the field is just unacceptable at that level. And he needs to be either checking his shoulder, like you mentioned, Grayson, or able to sprint towards his goal or backpedal towards the goal. One of the two needs to happen. It just
Yeah, you
is
can't be perpendicular
bad.
to the touch line or the end line.
Thank you,
You
Jacob.
you've
Yep.
got to open yourself up. The only real positive takeaway that I have from this game is that Roman Berkey is still Roman Berkey. Like,
Yep.
although we let up 3 goals, it could have been the worst scoreline in MLS this season. If
Easily.
I mean, I do rate Ben Lunt, but like the fact that Roman Berkey is there kept us at a 3-0 loss when it could have been like 8.
It could have been scary, dude. They definitely put it on us.
And the only person who really looked like they gave a fuck this match was Roman Berkey, which I expect nothing less.
Agreed.
I have one note. Uh, I will give Conrad Vollum a flower, one flower, not multiple flowers, but I'll give him a flower in this
A
match
dandelion.
for keeping his shots on target. You know, that's something he had 2 shots on target. The second one was a very poor slow roller, but the first one arguably was a fantastic save from the keeper. So I think his goal is coming. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't scored for City yet. I think it's going to happen.
Same.
But he also had defensively, he had 9 recoveries as well. So he does have that engine in the midfield. His desire is there. It's still just not coming off in the moment. But one of the performances I will give, a single clap to. I'll, you know, so trying to find the positives in the shit pile here. So
Yeah,
it's a hard one. But yeah, let's get into our points for this week, gentlemen. I know my point is pretty much just a little game. So I don't know if one of you guys would like to go first.
I'd like to play your game first.
Okay. We'll go ahead and play my game first. So, some of our most loyal City family know about this game from our off-season show, City Spotlight, where we cover almost all of the MLS. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, yeah,
the bottom half.
A third. We covered a third.
we didn't have enough time. Okay, we'll see. We'll have you know, a
We'll get
more
it done.
jump on, off-season next year, but. Basically, this game is crossbar. It's a game of overs and unders. I have 2 questions for you guys, and I need you to tell me if you're skying it or burying it. Question number 1. It's no doubt that St. Louis City has struggled to score goals this season. Our top scorer list right now is rough, topped off by Cedric Toikert with 3 goals, Marcel Hartle with 2, and then 5 different players with 1 goal, including Kyle Hebert, including Joao Klaus, including Simon Betcher. It's a two-parter, guys. Who will finish this season as St. Louis City's top scorer updated? And will they have over under 10 goals?
Wow, Grayson.
It's crazy to
That-
think that our top scorer would need 3 times the amount of goals he has now to even be considering a 10 goal season. That's just it's a rough question, I know, but it is a tricky one.
I got to be honest, right now, I think that we have potentially one 10 goal scorer in the squad, and I think it's John Day Silva. I think that he has the quality to bag 10 goals. I just don't think he will, Grayson. So I'm gonna bury it. I don't think that we have a 10 goal scorer this season, and I believe that John Day Silva will get 8.
Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback that. I also don't believe we have a 10 goal scorer on the roster, but I think the closest person who's gonna get there, and I know I really dogged on him in our last episode, but it is Celio Pompeo for me.
Yep, another good shout.
Yeah. I like your guys' shouts. I do think our wingers have been the most positive, dynamic part of the attack we've seen this year. These slim moments we've seen of Zonde Silva have given St. Louis City fans the teensiest bit of hope. So maybe that's why Olaf is not playing him, just to preserve the illusion that we could be good if we played Zonde. But I do think that Cedric Toykert will finish as our top scorer. He does have a nice little head start with 3 goals at the moment. I do not think he will reach 10. I think he'll top out at around 7 or 8, sadly. But from what I've seen from him, he's gotten into good positions. But he's in this headspace where he keeps taking just too many touches. I think he just gets in his head too much when he's about to finish and he puts it in side netting every time. So, I was happy to see him get a lucky goal here and there, but I'm tired of lucky goals. I want to see goals with intention. I want to see some buried goals. We know that Hartel and Toykert both have it in their locker, just has not come off this year. I think if it's going to come, it will come through Toykert. So,
Hilarious.
tricky one.
It's hilarious because I'm gonna use this to transition to my, or was that both parts of the over under?
No, I have one more.
Oh,
I have
okay,
one
okay,
more.
okay. Ribbit.
So, okay, question number 2. Speculation is clear and everywhere. Social media accounts are posting left and right that Olof Mellberg could be fired as early as today. And Monday is pretty much gone. So I'm going to assume that he didn't get fired today. So Olaf's still at the reins, but after all that speculation, I kind of agree with our friend City Views, who gives Olaf the San Jose match to figure it out. To get 3 points is all he's asking for to give us some sort of hope and that we can make the playoff run at some point this season. My question for you guys is over under. If Olof Mellberg lasts to the San Jose match, and if if you have a little bit more confidence in him, if you think he makes it past San Jose with 3 points, without 3 points, however you think he's going to get it done, or if you don't think he's going to even make it that long, or you can smack it on the crossbar if you think it's going to end post San Jose. I'll remind you, I'll give you guys the next 3 games too. We play Seattle,
I think
Colorado.
Colorado.
Colorado, Seattle, and then San Jose. Oh wait, no, not Seattle. It can't be Seattle. We played Seattle twice. Hold on.
Jacob, what do you think?
Um, hmm. I
So
think a lot of
that's
things.
that includes Minnesota midweek. So we have Minnesota, Colorado, San Jose.
I think for me, and this is part of my point, his tenure as coach really rides on what happens on Wednesday. City Views brings up a lot of great points, as he always does, about not having a completely healthy lineup throughout Olaf's tenure so far. And however, when we have had a healthy lineup, we still didn't really win. Um, yeah, I'd say depending on what happens on Wednesday, they might have got their weeks mixed up, but it could be as early as next Monday if we lose on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Olaf's seat is hot right now. And I don't know if it's gonna be the result on Wednesday or a result in the league that does it. However, I think that at the very least, the players can buy him some time by scoring goals. And so if say on Wednesday we exit the cup, but it's by way of a 3-2 loss, I think that's much, much, much easier for City fans to palate than a 3-0 loss again. If we get shut out once again and it is clear to everyone that we didn't get enough out of the players, I think then in that case, yeah, we might see Olaf out before even the Colorado game. However, yeah, I think if we score goals against Minnesota and if we score goals against Colorado, we will see Olaf until at least San Jose. Otherwise, I'm not sure. But the leash has got to be as tight as it can get right now. This is literally the worst time in the club's history.
I will say I don't love the idea of firing our coach because then it really feels like we're punting on the season.
I might sit on the opposite side of that, Jacob, because to me, firing the coach seems like, okay, we are not finished with this season. We are still looking to get somewhere before the halfway point, and it's clear to us that what we've been doing isn't working. What can we change that will impact change at a large scale?
Okay, I'm gonna change my wording. If we fire our coach without a game plan, then it feels like we're punting on the season. Because when we fired Carnell last year, we had Hack in place, which was just kind of like at the time it was a placeholder, and then Hack started getting results for us, so it felt good, like it was a good idea, but I don't know if we can replicate that 2 years in a row. If we fire Olaf, I hope we've got someone on the back burner to come
Well,
in quickly.
that's the thing is Hack is still within the organization. We could reinstate Hack, and I had this conversation with my dad over the weekend. I thought it was a really good conversation. That Hack could, you know, I was like, would he even want to come back? Obviously, he probably felt like he proved that he could do the job, and still it was taken from him. But, you could also use that kind of as leverage in your contract. Like, hey, say Hack makes it to playoffs with this squad, uh, automatically in the contract, if you make it to playoffs with this squad as the interim manager, you will be signed full time as the full time manager. I would honestly put that in the contract. If whoever the interim manager is, if you can get this St. Louis team into playoffs, I will take you as the full time manager. So I do think you know, firing a manager at this point in the season, as much as it is a negative, it's proof that we've made mistakes, but it's also a sign of intent that we want change and we want to get things done. I do think Lutz has shown to be, relatively ruthless in the past when it comes to, Bradley Carnell. He had 9 games unbeaten before he was cut. So we've given Olaf. Right now, we're a game or two past the leash of Bradley Carnell. So,
Grayson, I was going to bring up that same point is that Carnell was 9 winless and we let him go. So we've let managers go for less than the run that we're currently in.
right.
And
We're earlier in the season now, too. So we have more time to turn things around.
I will say though, and this is probably my final thought on the subject, is that if we took the most of the offseason as well as a lot of time post summer transfer window to find exactly the right fit at manager, just to end up with John Hackworth back at the helm after 14 games, I would be pretty disappointed. I would be pretty unhappy about that. And while last year I was big on the Hackworth brigade, if we decided to move on past it, we decided to move on past it. I don't want us to keep trying to fall back on this notion that Hack is going to be the guy. But I want something figured out in the managerial position for St. Louis City. It seems like that has been a weak link of ours for some time now.
That's fair. I don't know. I don't see too many like I don't know if we have the short list. I guess we have the short list from the summer of the people that we looked at besides Olaf, but it's a tricky one if you would just stick in just right in place a full-time new manager if you would just go to an interim that knows the club pretty well.
Well, I don't think it would be directly, but like we had Hack, what, 10 matches? That's 4.5 weeks. And then we took an entire summer to find somebody else. Like that, at that point, we really didn't have a game plan. Versus now, it's like, okay, if we fire him, let's say after this coming weekend, I would like to see the club have a plan in place for someone to take over within like 2 to 3 matches after that. Have someone be interim and then bring another person in. Because at that point, we're about bang on halfway through the season.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
glad
Jacob,
it's not my job.
yeah, what are you thinking, Jacob?
So I don't really have a point this week. I just wanted to bitch, and I've kind of hit on all of the parts of my point so far. But basically, my thing is we have to win the Open Cup match on Wednesday, for a lot of people's seats to cool off a little bit, and I'm in Let's We Trust, but piggybacking off of what we had just talked about, if we do end up firing a coach just for Hack to take over, I think that does point a lot of fingers at Let's. This match we didn't start a great lineup, but we did get to see what Minnesota is good at and what they're not good at. So, if anything, we really need to be in the film room, maybe not training and sprinting all goddamn week so everybody can pick up injuries. We started an out of shape JGR, which I've harped on the fact that all he did this match was jog. I don't actually think I saw him sprint a single time. And then I want to bitch about Cedric Toyshirt because he might be our top goal scorer, but to me, he is playing with the effort level of a Lionel Messi without the pedigree and without the production. Not good enough. You can't be jogging around complaining about passes that don't necessarily get to you, not really pressing, always picking up the wrong man when the other team's in possession to try to cut off the pass. It seems like he's never in the right spot defensively. And
Mm.
then, sure, he's got 3 goals, but one was gifted to him because that was going to be an Ostrak banger for years to come. And he just kind of happened to be in the way and deflected. So I'm not giving him credit on that one. I think even Lionel Messi would ask the scorekeeper to give it to the person who shot it. Josh Yarrow cannot play central center back. We've learned this through 2 seasons at this point. He cannot be the central center back. That was a miss lineup, in my opinion. I think Timo lacks fire. He doesn't really get stuck in, and he didn't really get stuck in this match. He is more of a finesse center back, which is great. I'm not saying he needs to play center back, but when you are the tallest center back of the 3 that we have on the field and you're playing one of the wider center backs, that is poor. And this was overall an abysmal performance. So let's learn from it. Let's win on fucking Wednesday because if we lose and we lose this bad again, I will then be fully Olaf out. Um, Final thing on it, there's give and take in a season, and I will take a bad MLS season if it means we are US Open Cup champions.
Mhm.
Not just a good run. If we are champions, what is the chant that Crystal Palace did, Grayson, if you would indulge me?
Tamina mina, waka waka, 12 again, who gives a fuck? We won the Open Cup.
Yeah, I would like to be chanting that. But at this point, I don't think we're going to be chanting anything except for Olaf out.
Woof. Poignant there from Jacob.
Drops the mic.
No
Drops the
kidding. He said,
mic.
I'm out of here now that I got my point out.
And fair enough, I kind of agree with him there. I think everyone in the city is starting to get a little bit of a short stick with Olaf and the management and it sucks because I felt really good this season when we signed him. I felt like the defensive outlook on our team was going to be super helpful and it wouldn't hinder the offense, hopefully. And we didn't get we had a glimpse of it for one or two games where we had a fantastic defense and the offense was not cooking, but we snuck some goals in and able to get a win here and there thanks to Ido Leuven's magic. But now that the magic is run out, there's nothing left. We're grasping at air and we're not getting points out of anything. So hard
Well,
times.
speaking of our defense doing really well in the season, Ethan, what's your point, brother?
What a segue, Jacob. Well, since you asked, we got off to the season not conceding a single goal through our first 5 games. And frankly, that was a defensive record that I think any fan base would be proud of. Nonetheless, a team that really, really struggled defensively last season, conceding, I want to say 73 goals, somewhere around there. Either it's close to that number. When we started the season, we had a back five that looked mostly like from left to right: Conrad Vollum, Johannes Horn, Henry Kessler, Kyle Hebert, and Thomas Totland. In my opinion, that is a strong back line that could compete against most teams in the MLS. As a matter of fact, that is the back line in the last game we won against the LA Galaxy. The back three that lined up to start against Minnesota United included Kyle Hebert on the left side, Josh Sharrow in the center, and Timo Baumgartel on the right side, which is, in my opinion, not a back line that could compete
Diabolical.
against too many MLS sides. Grayson, I do want to give you a lot of credit because last season you pointed out that Kyle Hebert and Josh Yaro were not MLS starting quality center backs. And I think Jacob and I pushed back on that. We thought that at the very least they could provide good quality minutes. Time has spoken, and you are right, my friend. It is clear to me that while, yes, Josh Yaro is a very lovable guy, I think he's a good dude off the field. His recent form has shown that he is not the kind of quality center back that St. Louis City need if they are going to be competitive. I think it's Henry Kessler. I think Henry Kessler is the clear and obvious central center defender. And of course, he's injured right now and rehabbing. But my goodness, is has this back three been such a stark contrast to our last back three, back five, if you want. I don't know if I have a necessarily a point with this other than just to compare the two and say that it feels worse that we are not as completely healthy. Not that that's an excuse. It's just really frustrating to see that our defense started one of the best in the league and has now plummeted to second
The
bottom in the West.
worst.
Definitely one of the worst. I'm not sold on the worst defense in the league yet because Montreal are conceding quite often, Atlanta are conceding quite often.
LA Galaxy's defense is period the worst in the league.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
yeah, we're not, you know what? I'm not even gonna say that because we'll just start doing it then.
so yeah, that's I think all I have to say about our defense. It's a rough time though.
Well, for time's sake and my own mental health sake, let's just do Kit Clash.
Let's rock it. Ding, ding, ding. We are matching up St. Louis City's away kit versus the Minnesota United Starry Night kit.
A banger.
It is quite beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
So Jacob, why don't you start off the ratings for this episode?
This is going to be one of my higher rated kits on the season, more than likely. I liked it when it came out. I liked it last year. I like it again this year. It is super dope. I really, really like the like very, very dark background with the very, very bright, splotches of white that are supposed to represent the stars. I also think Minnesota, their design team rarely misses, and this is definitely a hit for me. So I'm gonna go with a very respectable 8.9.
Yeah, that's kind of about where I'm sitting in the moment. I was thinking around in the eights somewhere. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.3. I do really like it. Uh, I wish Alaska had a team because I feel like this kit would fit better with them. But sadly, no Alaskan MLS team. I doubt there's plans for an Alaskan MLS team. But
They need everyone in the state to sell out the stadium.
yeah,
That's a
really.
massive state. Can you imagine traveling all the way across Alaska to go catch a soccer game?
It'd be absurd. It'd be absurd. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a low eight.
I'm pretty much right where Jacob's at. I'm going to go for an 8.8 because it is one of the most unique kits in the world. Not a lot of kits with the stars on them. So I really appreciate what they did there. And I think the Minnesota United badge is pretty underrated as far as I'm concerned. The loon in the badge is awesome.
I do like the loons. The loons as a mascot is pretty good. It's very fitting of a soccer club. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's something you'd hear overseas. Like that's just it's a good name.
Hmm.
And I did remember my criticism of this kit from last year. I think we said it was akin to a mall sweatshirt, a sweatshirt you get at the mall or something like
Yeah.
that. But
I remember that.
not bad, not bad. I think we've grown to like it a little bit more now. So that'll wrap up Kit Clash, nice and easy. We've already talked about the U.S. Open Cup a little bit for the preview. Any notes, or should we just pop straight into predictions for our U.S. Open Cup match against Minnesota United? We're gonna run it back.
I say, seeing as we are playing the same team, we just pop right into our predictions. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 loss, boys. I think we are going to exit the Open Cup. I think that we will have, at the very least, a respectable performance, which will be refreshing. Okay, not to say that we are going to win, but I think that we will have a passionate performance that people will be able to applaud. 2-1 loss, and I'm picking Jean De Silva to score. He's due.
I'm
Okay.
gonna go a different route, and I think it's mostly I'm gonna try to convince myself to be happy. Um, I'm gonna predict a win. I'm actually gonna go the inverse of you, Ethan. I think we win 2-1. I would like to hear from Minnesota fans um, about how much the Open Cup is meaningful in the state of Minnesota. I don't know if it has a very big history or if this is treated from them more like a rotation.
Not to mention they're like second in the league and within striking distance of Vancouver.
You
So
know,
I
they're relatively a new club, so this is probably one of their first Open Cup runs.
Part of me feels like they may want to focus more on the league and continuing their, for lack of a better term, dominance of it so far. And they may rotate aside. And our side is in a position where, like I said earlier, it's basically US Open Cup or bust at this point. Um, with seats being hot, there's got to be fire. I don't think the players want to see Olaf get fired. And that, for me as a player, would be enough to go give 110% effort on a Wednesday evening in Minnesota again. Um, so yeah, 2-1 victory. And since Klaus was rotated for the match at the weekend, I'm going to take him to score.
Okay.
I do like the shouts. I do think, we are going to rotate in a much stronger St. Louis City side. I could see Kessler getting back into the starting lineup here. Of course, Berkey's back, Klaus back, hopefully Azande Silva, Celio Pompeu start. This
I
is
would like to see
tricky.
a 3-4-3 formation.
Yeah, me too. I think we do lose this game, sadly. I do think we go out of the US Open Cup. There's just not too much of this St. Louis City side gives me
Hope.
objectively from an outside view gives me any reason to back this team, like to put
Mm.
my money on any of them as goal scorers consistently. I do think we will score this match. I think it's going to be 3-1. I do think we are going to score one. Well, Henry Kessler back in the lineup, maybe 2-1. But for the sake of a different scoreline than Ethan, I'll say 3-1. But I think 2-1 is more like it because I do think we will have a stronger defense. But I do think sadly St. Louis loses this match. I think it's just another step in the road to realization of like we need to figure out what's going on with this club. What exactly what goals we want to reach for this end of the season here because I don't know. Not a lot. Not a lot to grasp at, but 3-1 goal scorer. I'm gonna give it to the man I backed this week. Conrad Vallum will break that line and beat the keeper, getting his
That
first
would be
goal of the
nice.
season. That would be lovely. But that's gonna be my prediction. Oh, I hate that. Please prove me wrong. Please. Dear God. I think that goes ahead and wraps up the episode, though.
I do believe that is everything. You guys
Yeah.
got any final thoughts for the week? Any final words you want to leave the people with?
Oh,
Na na
rat.
na na. Hey, hey, na
What?
na na na. Hey, hey. So what? We're 12th in the league. We're Open Cup champions, or however it goes.
That is exactly right. What he said.
That's what I heard the chant say. But with all that being said, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this episode. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to like and leave 5 stars. Leave us a review. But the most important thing is do not forget to tell your mother you love her. That'll do it for us. Peace.
STL, USO
STL.
Cup, STL,
STL.
STL.
Go.
Waka waka, eh. So what? We're 12th in the league.
We won the